That was a really, really interesting card, I thought. I had a lot of anticipation going into the pay-per-view. Even though it wasn't necessarily the most stacked card on paper, there were some big names in there and some legends fighting throughout the card. Let's dive straight into the main event. We talk about absolute legends. Alex Pereira continues his reign as the light heavyweight champion. Now, this fight, I think, started off a lot closer than people thought. You know, Pereira has gained this sort of almost sense of invincibility among the fans after so many dominant performances. Khalil Rountree coming in as sort of, you know, not necessarily the rightful number one contender. There was a lot of questions coming in, and I thought personally it was quite a big mismatch in terms of skill. Over the first 2 rounds, that proved to be a little bit of a different story. Khalil Rountree was landing, you know, not the most impactful strikes, but he was definitely getting through, and the guy is powerful, like we've talked about before. He was landing some nice boxing combinations. He wasn't really going to the kicks a lot. Like Rogan said, he's a really big kicker, and he didn't kick a lot tonight. But I think, you know, the times he was going to the leg kicks, Pereira was all over that in terms of the checks. And even if Pereira wasn't landing super meaningful strikes over the first 2 rounds with the hands, he was stacking chips into those leg kicks. Even though they were the opposite stand, he was still able to find Khalil's lead leg, wrapping that southpaw kick around with his lead leg. And those are so damaging to the calf. You saw in the 3rd and the 4th round just how much those added up and took away Khalil's movement. Like we talked about though, the fight was really competitive for the first 2 rounds. Pereira was struggling to find his range with the hands, getting tagged, even was dropped at one point, and seemed a little bit frustrated. You could tell the altitude was affecting both guys, both of them breathing heavier. But Pereira just, you know, one of his best qualities, something that makes him so special, is he always finds a way to win. You know, that was proven against Israel Adesanya, KOing him in the 5th round, being down on all cards. You know, tonight, although it was more competitive, I thought he potentially lost the first 2 rounds. What did he do in the 3rd and the 4th? The damage from the legs was starting to add up, and once he found his boxing range, although Khalil Rountree is one of the toughest dudes I've ever seen in there against Pereira, it just doesn't matter. You can't continuously take that much damage. You saw Khalil Rountree's face, how destroyed it was. And Pereira was just hunting it down with the jabs, finding that range, and boom, stiff jabs too. They weren't just range finders. He was throwing them with bad intentions, and you saw the impact they were having on Khalil Rountree. Once Pereira was able to find the range with the hands, he was able to implement some really, really devastating blows. Once he got the timing of Khalil's boxing and he was hitting 1st and 3rd on those offbeat counters, that's where he was really punishing Khalil. And as Khalil continued to get more tired and more damaged, the tsunami wave picked up, and the momentum, you just couldn't hold it back. And Pereira did a super smart thing in the finishing sequence, because Khalil Rountree, like we just said, is so tough. He proved his warrior spirit. He was taking everything and eating it all to the head. It wasn't until Pereira went down and found the body in that finishing sequence that he was able to take the life and just take the soul from Rountree in that moment. Those 3 body shots that he went downstairs with and ended the fight with were some of the most demoralizing shots that you can land on an opponent. He was already hurt, dazed, stunned, confused, and to have the liver just hunted and ripped apart in that moment was absolutely brutal. It's crazy as well because you saw Khalil Rountree landing some good strikes, but at the end of the fight, he looked like he'd been hit by a train or something, you know. Like the damage discrepancy on their faces was absolutely nuts. Max Holloway's another guy like that who, you know, Ferguson back in the day, his prime, their opponents, even though they were taking shots, the opponents just looked like zombies. And another instance of that tonight, you know, Pereira, by the end of the fight, he had a couple of scuffs on him, but look at Rountree. Those cuts that he had all up in his eye and his nose was disgusting, absolutely mangled. Pereira is one of the most dangerous. I'd say the most dangerous striker in the UFC in terms of, how damaging he is. He's not there to put points on and take rounds. He is looking to find his range and to absolutely launch ballistic missiles at you. Khalil Rountree showed his heart. He showed that he deserved to be in there. He belonged in there with Pereira. He put up a really competitive fight, more competitive than a lot of the other top competitors were able to do in that division. So hats off to Khalil Rountree. You showed not only great heart, but just, a really great warrior spirit. I think he'll do great things, and this will be a great learning experience for him. Showing that he's able to hang up there in the top of the division with the best is going to give him a lot of confidence moving forward in his training, his preparation, and I think it's going to come through in his fights as well. You've gained a fan to me, Khalil Rountree. Thank you for an incredible performance. What's next for Alex Pereira? We have to see Magomed Ankalaev's next fight. We've heard Dana talk about that fight being next if Ankalaev can come up against Rakic. So, that should be the next fight. Heavyweight's such a kerfuffle at the moment. There's if Pereira was to move up to heavyweight one day, I would love to see him just take 6 to 8 months, even a year. He is older in his career, but I'd love to see him just take some time to build some muscle on his frame. And so he's really competitive up in that division, because I think he still has a little bit of work to do at 205. He's building an incredible legacy. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time. And he's still deep in his career. He's still right in the thick of it in his prime, doing incredible things in the sport. So Pereira, I'd say, is the number one superstar in the UFC right now. When he's fighting, the presence, like the walkout, I don't know if you guys were feeling that as well, but it's special. It's it's Conor McGregor-esque when he's coming in. There's just a different presence that he brings into the octagon, into the whole sport, in just the energy that he's injecting. The whole energy that he's injecting into these events is absolutely special to watch. And the new Juliana Pena defeats Raquel Pennington via split decision. I wasn't giving this fight my 100% attention, that's for sure, if I'm being 100% honest. So I thought when the cards were being read that it was a little bit of a robbery. I don't know. I'm going to have to go back maybe and see the rounds Pena won, because I saw her having some control time, but that knockdown in the 4th round was absolutely nasty. And I know the fights are scored round by round, but when you see that, especially in a women's MMA fight, it's pretty crazy to see the decision go the other way. And all down the card, there was some really interesting judging tonight. Again, we seem to be bringing this up every single week. So Juliana Pena reclaims her title, I suppose. She was asked about the Kayla Harrison fight and completely swerved that, calling out Amanda Nunes again, which no one wants to see. Kayla Harrison is new, she's fresh, and Juliana Pena, I don't know if it was possible to lose more stock tonight, but she definitely did. How she was dodging Kayla Harrison as well in the post-fight interview, she didn't win any fans tonight, I don't think. But anyway, she retains her title. On to the next. They're going to make her fight Harrison. I know that for sure, which will be, hopefully a bit more of an exciting matchup. It was a night of seeing legends really struggle, unfortunately. Father Time loses to no man, and it's really sad to see. Jose Aldo, although he looked really on top of the takedown defense, it was 10 out of 10, I believe. Bautista wasn't able to get him down. And Aldo landed some good stuff on the feet, but he just looks a step behind. He was taking some shots that he, I don't think he would have taken earlier in his career. And it's just disappointing to see another super close decision just not go his way. I thought you could have even scored the fight for Jose Aldo. Yes, Bautista was outstriking him in the numbers, but Jose Aldo had definitely the more impactful shots. And I don't know how these judges are continuing to score this clinch time against the fence as anything meaningful. In the rule books, it states the opposite, but who am I to say? I'm just a fan. I'm going to watch either way. So Jose Aldo, really late in his career now, 38 years old, takes a really tough loss. I think he'll want to stick around. He's talked about wanting to fight up, but we'll see. Whatever Jose Aldo does, he's going to have my respect, and I'll be watching regardless. Bautista, he moves in the right direction in a fucking absolute killer's row of a division. Bautista, I think that's 6 or 7 in a row now. And he looks really complete. I think he did what he had to do to win tonight, which, although it wasn't the most exciting performance, he knew how to win the rounds tonight and knew what the judges were looking for. Kevin Holland is injured. Roman Dolidze took him down, and the fight was playing out really interesting for the first few minutes. Once Dolidze got that takedown, something happened with Kevin Holland's ribs, and Dolidze slid through him like butter. I thought they could have stopped the fight from that mount position. Dolidze was raining absolute bombs, and I think it just goes to show, Kevin Holland, even with the injury, that the physicality he just doesn't have to compete in this division. He's been controlled on the ground before, and he's a little bit feeble in this division. You saw tonight, like the rib popping out off the takedown attempt. Regardless, Kevin Holland is always exciting to watch. It was a bit of an anticlimactic finish to that fight because it was starting to heat up, I think, for sure. Dolidze continues to move in the right direction, getting a win over a really good guy. Big name as well in Kevin Holland on short notice. So hats off to Roman Dolidze. Kevin Holland, he'll be back. He doesn't lose any stock of this. Kevin Holland doesn't lose any stock of this performance. He'll be back, and he's always a fan favorite, always tuning in to see that guy fight. He's an absolute wild man, as we've talked about before. Just an unfortunate ending to this fight tonight. Kayla Harrison, she looked a little bit more human tonight. Once she was able to get the fight to the ground, the moment she had the fight on the ground, it was absolute domination. It was not close once the fight hit the ground, but she struggled to get there, and she had to grit it out a little bit. She ate a really big elbow, got sliced open, a big hematoma opened up on the forehead, and she looked human tonight. It looked much different than it does with her fighting in the PFL. It just proves to show, even in the women's divisions, the UFC has the highest caliber athletes and fighters. She did what she had to do tonight, 30-27 on all cards. We're talking about a 30-27 performance, showing herself as being human. These are only positives for Kayla Harrison. She looked great. She had great takedowns. She managed her gas tank really well for someone who cuts a lot of weight and was fighting at altitude. And she'll be in the next title fight for sure. And I really like Kayla Harrison. I'm looking forward to seeing her in there because she brings a lot of entertainment to a division that, if we're being completely honest, severely lacks entertainment. My boy Wonderboy, he fell and he really looked old tonight. Joaquin Buckley, was hitting him with stuff that you don't ever see Wonderboy get touched with. I thought going into the matchup, based off Wonderboy's previous losses to really high-level competition, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Bilal Muhammad, he's lost to really good guys at the top of this division. Buckley's on his way up. I didn't really think that he was able to mix it up as well as he did tonight. Thompson looked good. He was able to pop up when defending the clinch. His defensive wrestling looked pretty good, but he just looked such a step behind his usual self. Getting tagged with big bombs on the feet. Seeing him get knocked out by Joaquin Buckley against the fence like that was really sad. With someone whose technique, athleticism, pace, and twitchiness is one of his main advantages. When that goes, it's really tough to see. So Wonderboy is in a really tough spot here because it's shown he can't hang at the top of this division anymore. I'm sure he can have some fun fights, but does he want to keep taking that much damage anymore? Because his defense and his ability to get out of the way with his feet of these shots that wouldn't have touched him before and are now causing serious damage. It's a really tough question that you have to ask yourself at that point in your career because, you don't want to be taking unnecessary damage and really impact your life later. But these guys are warriors, and that's what gets them into the dance. So you can only understand how torn these guys are when it's time to put it down, and put the gloves down and move on to something else. So yeah, great card tonight. Really interesting judging, like we talk about every week, but until something changes, we're going to continue to talk about it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to chatting again soon. If you could like and subscribe, it really helps this channel, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.